My adopted son blocked me from attending his college send-off. So I'm Carol, 60 years old, and the proud adoptive mother of my son Marcus, who I've raised since he was just 3 months old. For 18 years, I thought I knew what motherhood meant until Marcus found his birth family right before starting college. The pain of being blocked from his college send-off dinner cut deeper than any physical wound I've ever experienced. After nearly 2 decades of bedtime stories, soccer games, and teenage drama, I suddenly found myself replaced, as if those years of motherhood meant nothing. If you've ever felt replaced by someone, drop a comment below. And if you're watching this journey with me for the first time, hit subscribe to follow my story of healing and self-discovery. I was 42 years old and working as a marketing executive when I made the decision to adopt. Never married and focused on my career, I still felt that undeniable pull toward motherhood that wouldn't go away. The journey to adoption wasn't easy, especially as a single woman. The waiting lists seemed endless and the home studies invasive, but I was determined. I painted a nursery in soft blues and greens, bought a crib, and hoped. When I first met baby Marcus, he was tiny, with the biggest brown eyes that seemed to look straight into my soul. I'll never forget that moment when the social worker placed him in my arms. 3 months old, and already with a story, he became mine in that instant. The paperwork and legalities faded away. This was my son. The early days weren't without challenges. He'd cry at night, and sometimes I couldn't figure out why. I remember calling my mother at 2 a.m., sobbing along with him, wondering if I'd made a terrible mistake. But then there were moments. His first smile directed at me, the way his tiny hand would grab my finger, the peaceful look on his face when he finally fell asleep on my chest. That confirmed we were meant to be family. My career had to adjust to motherhood. I negotiated flexible hours and eventually took a position with less travel but also less pay. The trade-off was worth every penny. My parents were wonderfully supportive, coming over to babysit regularly. My sister Janet, despite living across the country, would fly in for extended weekends, claiming she needed nephew time when I knew she was really giving me a break. Marcus was a happy, curious child. He started walking at 10 months and never seemed to slow down after that. He loved books about dinosaurs, anything with wheels, and splashing in puddles, no matter how many times I told him not to. By kindergarten, he was already showing athletic ability, particularly in soccer and later basketball. From the beginning, I was committed to open communication about his adoption. I created a special book that told the story of how he came to be my son, with photos of his first day home and space for updates as he grew. We read it together often, especially around his gotcha day, the anniversary of his adoption. He seemed to accept it easily in those early years. As he grew, so did his questions. Where was his birth mom? Did she think about him? Why did she give him away? Did he have brothers or sisters? I answered as honestly as I could with the limited information I had. His birth mother was young, I told him. She wanted him to have opportunities she couldn't provide. Yes, she probably thought about him. No, I didn't know if he had siblings. Each answer seemed to satisfy him temporarily, but the questions always returned. Elementary school brought some behavioral challenges. Marcus would sometimes act out in class, becoming defiant with teachers or getting into arguments with classmates. The school counselor suggested it might be related to adoption issues and recommended therapy. Those sessions helped both of us. I learned about adoption-related trauma and attachment, while Marcus found ways to express his feelings through art and play. One of my favorite memories is the bedtime routine we developed. No matter how busy the day had been, we would lie in his bed and I would ask, "What was your favorite part of today?" He would share, then ask me the same question. We'd end with, "I love you to the moon and back," a phrase from his favorite bedtime story. This tradition continued well into his teenage years, though the conversations grew longer and more complex. High school brought new challenges. Marcus entered as a freshman already tall for his age and quickly made the varsity basketball team. He became popular, maintained good grades, and seemed to be thriving. I would watch him from the bleachers during games, my heart swelling with pride at this amazing person he was becoming. When Marcus turned 15, the identity questions intensified. One night, after a game, he asked more pointed questions about his birth family. What race was my birth father? Was my birth mother? Musical. Why don't I look like anyone I know? These questions had more urgency than before. Looking at my white skin and his brown complexion, I could see the disconnect he was feeling. I tried to be supportive, but privately I felt insecure. Was my love not enough? Had I failed him somehow by not being able to answer these questions about his heritage? I reached out to adoption support groups online and found other parents experiencing similar situations. They assured me this was normal, even healthy exploration, but it still hurt. Marcus's first serious girlfriend, Jasmine, came from a large African-American family. I liked her immediately. She was smart, kind, and brought out the best in Marcus. But dinner at her house, surrounded by people who shared physical features with my son in ways I never could, was a stark reminder of what I couldn't give him. After one such dinner, Marcus was unusually quiet on the drive home. Jasmine's grandma asked if I knew where my people came from in Africa. He said finally. I didn't know what to say. How did that make you feel? I asked, gripping the steering wheel tighter. Like there's a whole part of me that's missing, he replied. I consulted with more adoption experts, joined support groups, and read books about transracial adoption. I wanted to help him, but I also felt like I was losing him to questions I couldn't answer. By junior year, Marcus became increasingly distant. He spent more time in his room, was on his phone constantly, and our dinner conversations grew shorter. One day, I used his laptop to print something for work and noticed the browser history adoption search websites, DNA testing services forums for adoptees searching for birth parents. That night, I confronted him. I saw what you were looking at on your computer, I said. Are you trying to find your birth parents? His defensiveness surprised me. What if I am? Don't I have a right to know where I came from? Of course you do, but I wish you had talked to me first, I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. Why? So you could talk me out of it. He was almost shouting now. No, so I could help you, I said. But the truth was, I was terrified. What if his birth mother wanted a relationship? What if she was wonderful and he preferred her? What if she was terrible and hurt him all over again? We argued like never before. I said things I regret, that looking for his birth family might disrupt all our lives, that he was being selfish, not considering my feelings. He accused me of only pretending to support his identity journey when it was convenient for me. After a sleepless night for both of us, I apologized. You're right, I told him over breakfast. This is your story, your life, and you have every right to know where you came from. I'm scared, but I want to help, not hinder. The relief in his eyes was immediate. We researched together, and for his 17th birthday, I gave him a DNA ancestry test kit. As we swabbed his cheek and sealed the sample, I felt like we were closing one chapter of our relationship and opening another, uncertain one. The waiting period after submitting the DNA was tense. Marcus checked for results daily while I alternated between hoping for no matches and wanting this search to bring him peace. Whatever happened, I told myself we would face it together. The DNA results arrived on a Tuesday afternoon. Marcus called me at work, his voice vibrating with excitement. Mom, I got a match. A first cousin on my birth mom's side. I left work early, my stomach in knots. By the time I got home, he had already messaged his newfound cousin through the DNA service's messaging system and was waiting for a response. What if they don't want to know me? He asked, vulnerability replacing his earlier excitement. I held his hand. Then that's their tremendous loss, I said, meaning it despite my own conflicted feelings. The cousin responded that evening expressing shock and joy. She connected Marcus with his birth mother Tanya, who had apparently told her family about the baby she placed for adoption years ago. I sat next to Marcus as he crafted a careful first message to her, offering suggestions, but letting him take the lead. When we discovered Tanya lived just 2 hours away in the same state, the reality of this connection became even more immediate. She had 2 other children, Damon, 15, and Alicia, 12. Marcus's birth father wasn't in the picture, having left before Tanya knew she was pregnant. I worked hard to be supportive, telling Marcus how happy I was for him while crying alone in my bathroom at night. I reminded myself that this wasn't about me, that his need to know his origins was natural and important. Still, each new revelation felt like another thread unraveling from the fabric of our family. I helped arrange the first video call with Tanya, but respected their privacy by making myself scarce during the actual conversation. When it ended, Marcus bounded into the kitchen, more animated than I'd seen him in months. "She looks like me mom, and she laughs just like I do. And Damon is into basketball too, and Alicia plays piano, and they want to meet me in person." The words tumbled out in a rush of excitement. "That's wonderful, honey," I said, genuinely happy for his joy, while feeling a strange hollowness expand in my chest. Over the next weeks, Marcus's behavior changed dramatically. He was constantly on his phone, guarding it more closely than before. He made plans to visit Tanya's family on weekends, coming home with stories about cousins, aunts, uncles, and grandparents he'd never known. Each story was like a small paper cut to my heart. One evening, I was walking past his room when I heard him on the phone. "Yeah, Mom, I'll let you know about the college visit dates," he was saying. Mom. Not Tanya, but Mom. I stood frozen, then quietly retreated to my bedroom, where I cried silently into my pillow. My sister Janet noticed the change during her visit that spring. "Are you okay with all this?" she asked after Marcus left to spend yet another Saturday with Tanya's family. "Do I have a choice?" I responded, trying to sound stronger than I felt. "Yes," Janet insisted. "You have the choice to acknowledge your own feelings. Being supportive doesn't mean being a doormat." But I couldn't bring myself to potentially damage Marcus's newfound connection. Instead, I smiled through my pain and asked enthusiastic questions about his other family while lying awake at night wondering where I had gone wrong. The college acceptance letter from Marcus's dream school arrived in April, addressed to Marcus Williams, the name we shared. We celebrated with his favorite dinner and chocolate cake, making plans for dorm shopping and orientation. For a moment, it felt like before, just the two of us facing the next adventure together. That feeling didn't last. Tanya became increasingly involved in college preparations. Marcus mentioned that she had connections at the university, that her cousin worked in administration, that she knew which dorms were best. Information I had researched meticulously was suddenly less valuable than Tanya's second-hand knowledge. Marcus began spending entire weekends at Tanya's house, meeting extended family members who traveled to see Tanya's firstborn. Each Sunday when he returned, he seemed to bring less of himself back home. "Tanya thinks I should get the meal plan with unlimited dining hall access," he announced one evening as I reviewed tuition options. "The research I did suggests that's excessive for most freshmen," I countered. "You might want to start with the 14-meal plan and see how it goes." He looked at me with slight impatience. "Tanya's nephew just graduated from there. He said everyone needs the unlimited plan." I bit my tongue, not pointing out that her nephew wasn't Marcus. It was the first of many deferences to Tanya's opinions over mine. The graduation ceremony should have been a crowning achievement for both of us, the culmination of all our years together. Instead, it became a painful exercise in sharing. Tanya and her children attended, sitting just 2 rows behind me. After the ceremony, people kept asking how I knew Tanya's family, their resemblance to Marcus, making my relationship to him seem less obvious. At the graduation party, I had spent months planning. I felt like a guest rather than the host. Marcus spent most of the time introducing Tanya's relatives to his friends while I refilled drinks and tried to look busy. Janet stayed close, her worried eyes following me as I moved mechanically through hostess duties. A week later, Marcus mentioned casually that Tanya was planning a special college send-off dinner at an upscale restaurant downtown. "That's nice," I said, waiting for details or an invitation. None came. "When is it?" I finally asked. "Next Friday," he replied, not meeting my eyes. "Would you like me to contribute anything or help organize?" I offered. His response was awkward, halting. "Well, it's kind of just family. You know, Tanya's parents are coming in from out of state, and her sister?" The implication hung heavily in the air between us. Family. Not me. "I'm not invited?" I asked directly, my voice smaller than I intended. "Mom don't make this weird," he said, fidgeting with his phone. "It's just one dinner." "I'm your mother, Marcus. I've been your mother for 18 years. How is it weird to expect to be included in your college send-off?" "You're making a big deal out of nothing," he replied, irritation creeping into his voice. "You can do something with me another time." I pressed further, hurt transforming into anger. "So your birth mother, who you've known for a few months, gets to host your send-off dinner, but I, who raised you, am excluded." That's when he said it, words that cut through me like glass. "I just want to spend time with my real family before I leave." Real family. 2 words that negated 18 years of love. Sacrifice, middle-of-the-night fevers, homework, help basketball games, and everything else we had shared. I couldn't speak. I simply walked away, closing my bedroom door quietly behind me, too shocked even for tears. The night of the college send-off dinner, I sat alone in my living room, surrounded by photo albums. 18 years documented in chronological order. Baby Marcus in his crib toddler. Marcus taking his first steps elementary school. Marcus missing his front teeth. Teenage Marcus in his basketball uniform. Page after page of our life together that now felt like it belonged to someone else. Around 7, when I knew the dinner would be starting, the tears finally came. Not gentle tears, but body-racking sobs that left me gasping for air. I called Janet, barely able to form coherent sentences. "He's with them. His real family." "Janet, what did I do wrong?" Janet arrived 45 minutes later with a bottle of wine and enough comfort food to feed a small army. "You did nothing wrong," she insisted, pouring generous glasses for both of us. "This is about his journey, not your parenting." The rational part of me knew she was right, but rationality was no match for the feeling of my heart being shredded. Around 9, I couldn't resist checking social media. There they were. Photos of the dinner already being posted. Marcus beaming between Tanya and her parents, Damon and Alicia on either side. The caption read, "Family send-off for our college boy, so proud of our Marcus." Our Marcus, not my Marcus anymore. I collapsed completely, then a kind of emotional breakdown I had never experienced before. Janet had to help me to bed, where I lay awake all night, staring at the ceiling, physically ill from the pain. The next morning, I couldn't get out of bed. I couldn't eat. I called in sick to work, something I rarely did. One day turned into 3. I couldn't focus, couldn't function. My boss was understanding when I requested emergency leave, but I could hear the concern in her voice. "You need professional help," Janet insisted after checking on me for the 5th day in a row and finding me still in pajamas, barely functioning. "This isn't just sadness, Carol. This is grief." She was right. I was grieving as if Marcus had died, except it was worse because he had chosen to leave me behind. I found a therapist, Dr. Harriman, who specialized in adoption issues. Our first session, I cried the entire time. "What you're experiencing is real," she assured me. And it's connected not just to Marcus finding his birth family, but to deeper issues around adoption itself. She introduced me to concepts like adoption trauma and the primal wound that adoptees experience. The idea that regardless of how loving an adoptive home is, there's an inherent loss for the child that may manifest later in life. For the first time, I considered that Marcus's search wasn't a rejection of me, but a necessary healing journey for himself. Still, understanding intellectually didn't ease the emotional pain. I questioned every parenting decision I'd ever made. Should I have sought out more connections to his cultural heritage? Should I have started the search for his birth family sooner, on my terms, rather than his? Had I been selfish in wanting to be his only mother? The day came to drop Marcus off at the airport. He would be flying across the country to start his new life at college. Our conversation was minimal, polite, but distant. At the terminal, our goodbye was brief and cold, nothing like the emotional send-off I had imagined for years. "Have a good flight," I said. "Thanks," he replied, already looking past me toward the security line. No hug. No, "I love you." Just a quick nod before he walked away. Driving home to an empty house was surreal. 18 years of motherhood, and suddenly nothing. His room untouched, still filled with the things he'd decided not to take to college. Posters on the walls, trophies on the shelves, the faint smell of his cologne lingering in the air. I closed the door, unable to bear the emptiness. 2 weeks into Marcus's first semester, my phone lit up with a text message around 11 p.m. "Need money for books. Can you transfer $300? No hello, no asking how I was doing, just a request for money. Despite everything, my first instinct was to help. I immediately went online and transferred the funds to his account, then texted back, "Done. Hope classes are going well." His brief reply, "Thanks, they're fine." I went to bed feeling like a human ATM, but at least there had been contact. The next morning, my phone rang unexpectedly early. Marcus's name appeared on the screen. My heart jumped as I answered. "Mom." His voice sounded different, panicked, younger somehow. "What's wrong?" I asked, immediately concerned. "I tried to use your credit card for dinner last night, and it was declined," he said, words tumbling out rapidly. "I'm really embarrassed. Tanya and her family came to visit for the weekend, and we went to this expensive restaurant, and when it came time to pay, she asked me to pitch in, and I didn't have enough cash, so I tried to use your card from my phone wallet, and it didn't work, and now Tanya's mad at me for not contributing and—" "Wait!" I interrupted, my mind catching up with his rush of words. "You tried to use my credit card without asking me." "Well, yeah," he said, as if it were obvious. "I've always been an authorized user." "Not anymore," I said quietly. "I removed you last month." There was a long pause. "What? Why would you do that?" His tone shifted from panic to anger. "I've made some changes to all the accounts," I explained, surprising myself with how calm I sounded. "You're an adult now, Marcus. It seemed appropriate." "What changes?" he demanded. I took a deep breath. "I've removed you as an authorized user on all my credit cards. I've also removed your access to my checking and savings accounts." "How am I supposed to pay for things?" he asked, incredulous. "I've transferred your entire college fund to an account in your name only," I explained. "You should have received the information in your email. It's quite a substantial amount. Enough for 4 years of tuition, room and board books, and reasonable expenses if you're careful." The silence on the other end was deafening. Finally, he spoke, his voice smaller. "Tanya expected me to pay part of the dinner bill. It was over $400. I felt a twinge of satisfaction that I quickly tried to suppress. "That's between you and Tanya," I said. "I'm sure you can work something out." "Can't you just send me some extra money this once?" he asked. "I'll pay you back." The old me would have transferred the money immediately, desperate to maintain any connection. The new me, shaped by therapy and painful growth, recognized the unhealthy pattern. "No, Marcus, your college fund is quite generous. You'll need to budget accordingly." Another long silence. Then, surprisingly, "I'm sorry." 2 simple words, but they were the first crack in the wall between us. "For what?" I asked, not making it easy. "For trying to use your card without asking," he said. "It wasn't everything, but it was a start." After we hung up, my phone rang again almost immediately. An unfamiliar number. "Is this Carol?" a woman's voice asked. "This is Tanya Marcus's mother." The audacity of her calling me directly took my breath away. "Yes, this is Carol Marcus's mother," I replied, emphasizing the last 2 words. "Look, there seems to be some confusion about Marcus's finances." She began, her tone condescending. "He's just a boy who needs support. I thought you'd want to know that he's embarrassed about not being able to contribute to our family dinner." "Marcus is 18, I replied evenly. "He has his own college fund now. How he manages it is up to him." "But surely you don't expect him to pay for family gatherings," she pressed. "I don't expect anything regarding your family gatherings since I'm not included in them," I said, surprising myself with the directness. "If you invite an adult to dinner and expect them to contribute, that's between you and them." "I see," Tanya said coldly. "I had hoped we could discuss this reasonably." "I believe I am being reasonable," I replied. "Marcus has financial resources. He needs to learn how to use them responsibly. That's part of becoming an adult." After she hung up, I sat with my hands shaking slightly, but also with a strange sense of empowerment. For the first time since Tanya had entered our lives, I had stood my ground. That evening, Marcus called again. This time, his tone was different. More humble, more like the son I knew. "Mom, I'm really sorry," he began. "Not just about the credit card, about everything." I waited, not rushing to fill the silence. "I've been a jerk," he continued. "I got so caught up in finding my birth family that I forgot who's been there for me all along." "It hurt," I admitted, finally allowing my pain into the conversation. "When you called them your real family, when you excluded me from your send-off dinner, it felt like 18 years of being your mother meant nothing." "I never meant to hurt you," he said, his voice cracking. "They seemed so perfect, like this missing piece that would make everything in my life make sense." "And has it?" I asked gently. "No," he admitted after a pause. "Tanya's family isn't perfect. They have their own issues. And," he hesitated, "they expect things from me. Financial things, emotional things. It's not unconditional, like with you." We talked for nearly 2 hours that night, the most honest conversation we'd had in months. I acknowledged his need to know his birth family and how I might have reacted defensively out of my own insecurities. He admitted to getting carried away with the excitement of his new connections and taking me for granted. "Can we start over?" he asked. "Not over," I corrected. "Forward, with new boundaries and more honesty." He agreed, and for the first time in months, we ended the call with "I love you to the moon and back," our old bedtime saying that suddenly felt new again. 3 months later, I found myself on a plane headed to Parents' Weekend at Marcus's college. The intervening months had been transformative. Weekly therapy sessions helped me distinguish between my identity as a woman and my role as a mother. I reconnected with old friends, resumed hiking on weekends, and even started dating again, something I hadn't done since before adopting Marcus. Through a support group, I met other adoptive mothers with similar experiences. Their stories of children finding birth families helped normalize my feelings and provided practical advice for building healthy relationships with extended birth families. I wasn't alone, and that knowledge itself was healing. When my plane landed, I felt nervous, but also hopeful. Marcus was waiting at baggage claim, taller somehow, after just 3 months away. When he saw me, he broke into a smile and did something he hadn't done in over a year. He hugged me tight, lifting me slightly off the ground. "I missed you, Mom," he said into my hair. "I missed you too, sweetheart," I replied, fighting back tears. Our dinner that night was initially awkward, but gradually eased into honest conversation. Marcus described his classes, his roommate the campus food. I shared stories from home, careful not to make him feel guilty about being away. Eventually, we addressed the elephant in the room. "I've been talking to Tanya about once a week," he said cautiously, watching my reaction. I nodded, keeping my expression neutral. "How's that going?" "It's okay," he said. Different than I expected. She wants a lot of updates about my grades, and she's always asking about my plans after college. "That's understandable," I offered. "She's trying to catch up on 18 years. "Yeah, but sometimes it feels like—" He hesitated, searching for words. "Like there are conditions attached," I suggested gently. His eyes met mine, surprised. "Exactly. Like she's proud of me because I'm doing well in college, not just because I'm me." "And how does that make you feel?" "Confused," he admitted. I built up this idea that finding my birth family would answer all my questions about myself. But it just created new questions. I reached across the table and took his hand. Identity is complicated, Marcus. Being adopted adds another layer to that complexity. It's okay to still be figuring it out. "I wish I hadn't pushed you away," he said, his eyes filling with tears. "I was so stupid." "Not stupid," I corrected. "Just searching. And I could have handled it better too. I was so afraid of losing you that I didn't give you the space to explore safely. I'm sorry for that." We both cried, then not caring about the other diners around us. It was a necessary release, a washing away of old hurts. "I don't know how to balance it all," he confessed. "You, Tanya, college, figuring out who I am. We'll figure it out together," I promised. "I'm still your mom, Marcus. Nothing changes that. Not distance, not other relationships, nothing." The next day, Marcus proudly introduced me to his roommate and friends as my mom. Not my adoptive mom or any other qualifier, just Mom. Later, he showed me around campus, his arm casually draped over my shoulders, like when he was younger. On the flight home, I reflected on how much had changed in just a few months. The pain hadn't disappeared completely, but it had transformed into something more manageable, more constructive. Marcus and I were building a new relationship, one based on honesty rather than fear, on choice rather than obligation. For Thanksgiving, Marcus suggested something unexpected, a dinner including both me and Tanya's family. "Not at their house or yours," he clarified. "Neutral territory like a restaurant. I want the people I care about to at least know each other." It was a mature suggestion that showed how much he'd grown. I agreed, knowing it wouldn't be easy, but recognizing its importance to him. In the quiet moments alone, I often meditated on what true motherhood means. Is it biology? Is it years of daily care? Is it the legal right to call someone your child? I've come to believe it's something both simpler and more profound. It's love that wants what's best for the other person, even when that's difficult. It's supporting their journey, even when that journey takes them away from you temporarily. The wisdom I've gained through this painful experience is that love and possession are different things. I didn't lose my son when he found his birth family. I lost the illusion of exclusivity. The reality of our bond, built through thousands of ordinary moments, strengthened through challenges and now tested by fire, remains intact, perhaps even stronger for having been challenged. In letting him go to find himself, I found myself too. The woman who exists beyond motherhood, who has value and purpose independent of her role as Marcus's mom. That's the unexpected gift in all of this pain. The rediscovery of Carol. Have you experienced a relationship that transformed through crisis? I'd love to hear your story in the comments below. And if this journey of motherhood and identity has resonated with you, please like and subscribe to join me for more reflections on family healing and personal growth. Thank you for witnessing my story, and may you find strength for whatever relationship challenges you're facing in your own life.